I called my parents to tell them that my husband had died. Cruelly, they told me they were busy at my sister's birthday party. Days later, they came to ask for 50% of the inheritance. My 8-year-old daughter handed them an envelope and said, "That's why you came, right?" When they opened it, their hands started to shake. No one suspects the world can end while you're spreading butter on toast. Elena Marquez, 32 years old, had no idea that Tuesday would be the last one she'd share with the love of her life. An architect, orderly even with her emotions, with a gaze that seemed to hide secret blueprints even when she smiled, she led a life anyone would envy. A brilliant daughter, a devoted husband, a home in a quiet neighborhood, a stable career. And yet, something inside her seemed to stir that day with an inexplicable unease, like a slight tremor before a collapse. "Can I put a face on a day's pancake?" Lily asked, sitting cross-legged on the chair, still wearing her wrinkled pajamas from the night before. Tomas, with his plaid apron tied around his waist, turned toward her holding the spatula as if it were a magic wand. "Sure, my dinosaur princess, but only if you promise to eat your broccoli tonight." "Deal, but only if Mom eats it too." Elena laughed from the countertop, taking a sip of her coffee. "Your dad's the one who needs more broccoli than anyone. Look at that executive belly." "Hey," protested Tomas, giving his flat stomach a theatrical slap. "This body is for high financial performance, okay?" That breakfast seemed pulled from a postcard of the perfect life. Morning light streamed through the curtains, casting golden silhouettes on the wooden floor. Elena looked at Tomas as he served another pancake on Lily's plate. She loved him. Not for grand gestures, but for the little things. For how he cut the fruit into animal shapes. For how he read stories using different voices for each character. For how he said, "I'm almost there," when leaving the shower, only to come back to steal a kiss. "Don't forget to bring the real maple syrup today, okay? None of that corn syrup crap you bought last time," Tomas said while grabbing his briefcase. "I've got it noted. Promise redemption." "I love you," he whispered in her cheek. "Love you more," Elena replied. That was their last exchange. At 10:47 a.m., when Elena was sitting at her computer reviewing the plans for a community center her firm had started designing, her phone vibrated. The name on the screen was Amanda Reyes, Tomas's personal assistant. She had never called before. "Amanda?" Elena asked, frowning. "Elena." The voice on the other end was choppy, as if gasping for air. "Tomas, he fainted during a meeting. They're taking him to the hospital now. Northwestern Memorial." A second before the phone slipped from her hands, Elena felt a hole open in the center of her chest. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She jumped up, left the laptop open, and ran out without even turning off the coffee maker. She called her neighbor Ellen, sobbing and stammering, to pick up Lily from school. Then she drove at a speed that defied physics and traffic laws, invoking every prayer she knew, every promise she had ever made to God in exchange for impossible favors. She arrived at the emergency room with her soul already out of her body. Amanda's pale face found her before she reached the desk. Hands trembling, eyes red. "Where is he?" Elena demanded. Amanda didn't answer with words. She just shook her head. The next hours were a distorted echo, words like sudden heart attack, instant death, nothing could be done. A doctor with a grave voice. A nurse offering water that Elena never held. Papers. Signatures. An inhuman coldness in an overly white room. When they finally let her see him, Tomas looked asleep. But it was the kind of sleep you don't wake up from. Elena touched his still warm cheek, hoping for some sign. Nothing. His chest did not rise. His lashes did not flutter. They had torn away half of her world. She didn't cry there. Not in front of them. Not while she had to follow procedures like it was simple logistics. But inside, she was breaking apart completely. At 5 in the afternoon, she drove back home. Traffic flowed as usual. People walked along the sidewalks carrying grocery bags, dogs, phones, life. No one seemed to know that the world had just ended. Lily ran out of the school building toward the car. And Dad? She asked as soon as she opened the door. He said he'd come to the art show. Elena pulled over to the side of the street. Her hands were sweating on the steering wheel. Get in, honey. We need to talk. Once Lily was inside, her backpack on her lap, Elena turned toward her. She took both of her hands. The world seemed to stop. Something very sad happened today, my love. Very sad. Is Dad in the hospital? Yes, he was. His heart suddenly got sick and stopped working. Couldn't the doctors fix it? Elena swallowed hard. No, my love. This time they couldn't. Dad died today. Lily's face changed like a wilting flower in seconds. Her gaze turned watery. Her lips curled downward. Then, as if pulled by the sea, she screamed. No! I want Dad. Mom, please. She threw herself onto Elena, hitting her chest, sinking into her as if trying to protect herself from the universe. Elena held her, wrapping her in arms barely able to carry their own emotional weight. The two cried there, on the edge of the street, with cars passing by, in a world that simply did not stop. That night, Lily fell asleep hugging Tomas's unwashed shirt. Elena, on the other hand, couldn't sleep. She locked herself in the bathroom, sat on the cold floor, and let the sobs tear her throat silently. No one had told her that physical grief could hurt so much that it felt like your chest was going to explode and the air turned to cement. Through tears, she called her parents. She needed to hear them. Someone, anyone still breathing. Hello, her mother, Teresa, answered, laughter and music in the background. Mom, Elena's voice was barely a broken whisper. Tomas died today. A heart attack. There was silence. Then Teresa murmured something in the background. Oh, daughter, what terrible news. But we're at Sophia's party right now. How about we talk tomorrow? Elena was speechless. Mom? Yes, terrible about Tomas. But the whole family is here tonight. Can you hold on a bit? I saw his body. There's no mistake. Well, when this is all over, we'll come see you. Okay. She hung up. Elena stared at the phone with a trembling hand. No one was coming. No one was going to arrive. She returned to the bedroom. Lily was sleeping. On her little chest, Tomas's shirt rose and fell with each breath, as if still hugging him. Elena lay down beside her, wrapped her in an arm, and thought, with a mix of anger and emptiness, that she was completely alone in this shipwreck. Darkness crept slowly that night, unhurried, as if savoring each step toward her heart. Elena slept only a couple of hours that night. The body beside her was Lily's, but the emptiness on the other side of the bed weighed like a cursed presence. The hole Tomas left wasn't only physical. It was like an expanding silence, a crack swallowing calm, logic, and the illusion that everything would be okay. At dawn, when the light filtered through the curtains barely touching her daughter's face, Elena got up with slow movements, as if the air resisted her. She showered without thinking, dressed without feeling. Every action was mechanical, a simulation of humanity. She checked her email on her phone. Messages from friends, acquaintances, colleagues, all expressing condolences. Some sincere, others empty, but no missed calls from her parents. She forced herself to call the funeral home. Tomas had left everything in order, as if he knew he would die young. Elena found a folder labeled "Only if something happens," hidden behind photo albums in the studio's library. There was everything: instructions, policy, bank information, even the name of the funeral director to contact. A map for the worst days. On the third try, she managed to reach Teresa. Hello, her mother answered cheerfully. The funeral is confirmed, said Elena, skipping the greeting. Saturday, 11 o'clock, at St. Gabriel's Church. Then, a small gathering at home. Well, let's see if your father can move the golf tournament. I think he can, but I'm not making any promises. And Sophia is trying to find something decent to wear. Elena clenched her teeth. It's not a gala dinner. It's my husband's funeral. Oh, sweetie, don't start with the drama. We're doing the best we can. Besides, you know how Sophia is. She doesn't own anything black, not even closed-toe shoes. She gets stressed out if she feels out of place. She gets stressed out if she feels out of place, Elena repeated in a cold voice. Great. Then tell her to come naked. No one's going to be looking at her anyway. Teresa huffed. Look, don't get aggressive. It's bad enough this happened right after her birthday. It's been a lot for all of us. Elena hung up without replying. She drifted through the days like a ghost, making calls, writing notices, arranging flowers, coordinating with the funeral home. Marcelo, her brother-in-law, called from the Tokyo airport. I'll arrive Friday night. Don't worry about me. Just let me know if Lily needs anything. Thanks for coming, Elena replied, her throat tightening. Tomas made me promise that if anything ever happened to him, I'd be there for you and Lily. I didn't think it would be so soon. When she hung up, Elena collapsed onto the bed. Tomas had known. He always joked that his family had moody hearts, like it was a mischievous genetic trait. But behind the jokes were doctor visits, pills he forgot to take, checkups he kept postponing. And now he was dead. Saturday arrived like a sentence. Elena chose a navy blue dress that Tomas had loved. Lily wanted to wear her sky blue one, the one Tomas called the astronaut princess dress, because she said it made her feel like she was flying among the stars. Elena didn't have the heart to say no. They arrived early at the church. People were already waiting. Tomas's colleagues, neighbors, Lily's book club friends, even old college friends. Everyone approached with cautious hugs, gentle words, real tears. At 10:48, she received a message. We're on our way. Heavy traffic. Kiss Lily for us. Mom. Elena closed her eyes. 20 minutes later, just as everyone was entering the church, they arrived. Claudia with a light blazer and an annoyed expression, Teresa with oversized sunglasses and a mismatched hat, and Sophia in a tight burgundy red outfit, more suited for a cocktail party. When they reached the front, Claudia whispered, Is this where the family sits? Elena nodded without looking at them. While Tomas's casket rested in the center of the church, while the choir sang a muted hymn, Sophia took out her phone and checked it discreetly several times. Teresa dabbed at dry eyes with a dry tissue. Claudio checked his watch every 5 minutes. During the sermon, Elena didn't cry. She clung to Lily's hand and the memory of that last morning. She closed her eyes and pictured the kitchen, the smell of coffee, the sound of the spatula against the pan. She squeezed her eyes shut even tighter. After the ceremony, everyone moved to the house. Marcelo was already there, arranging chairs in the backyard with Ellen's help. Elena was surprised to see the flowers perfectly arranged, a table with coffee and pastries, glasses neatly lined up. Ellen came over and gently touched her arm. I took the liberty of setting this up. You didn't have to handle everything on your own. Elena didn't know what to say. She just nodded with quiet gratitude. By 12:30, the house was filled with murmurs. Some laughed over memories of Tomas, others shared long, nostalgic hugs. Lily darted from one aunt to another, soaking up affection, telling stories about her dad as if he were still home. Marcelo followed her closely, silent, protective. The exhaustion was visible in his dark circles, jet lag still clinging to his skin, but he never strayed far from his niece. From the kitchen, Elena saw Claudio talking with his brother James, the uncle who had always been more banker than man. Tomas was doing very well at that firm. Junior partner, right? James said as he sipped his wine. More than that. Partner with a retirement package option. I'm sure he left behind a decent policy. Elena will be covered for years. Elena's stomach turned. She spun around, crossed the kitchen, and faced them. Excuse me? Did I hear that right? Claudio straightened. James raised his eyebrows. Sweetheart, we were talking about the future. It's important to think about how you'll move forward with Lily. My husband hasn't even been dead 3 hours, and you're already thinking about his money. Don't see it that way, Claudia replied with a diplomatic smile. It's foresight. And with our health problems, any help in the future. Are you suggesting I use the money from Tomas's death to help you? Claudio let out a strained laugh. I'm just saying, family supports each other. Where was that support when I called you in tears? When I begged for help with the funeral? When Lily asked why her grandparents didn't hug her? Don't make a scene in front of everyone, Elena. This isn't the time. Exactly. It's not the time. And it never will be. She turned on her heels, breathing hard. In the hallway, she ran into Teresa. What's going on? You look pale. Your husband, talking about money like a vulture. That's what's going on. Oh, Elena. You're very upset. You can't take offense at every little comment. It's only natural to worry about the family's future. Well, let them worry about their own. Tomas died thinking about me and Lily. Not about any of you. She climbed the stairs and shut the bedroom door. She needed to block out the hypocritical murmurs. From the window, she saw Lily laughing with Marcelo, a real laugh, brief, like a bubble of life in the middle of disaster. She knelt on the floor, hugged one of Tomas's shirts that still smelled like him, and this time, she truly cried. She cried for Tomas, for his absence, for the emptiness in the bed, in the house, in their plans. She cried for Lily, for the hole left in her childhood. And she cried for herself, for being born into a family that could calculate financial gains over a closed casket. When she came back downstairs, the guests were starting to leave. Teresa and Claudia were already near the door, saying their goodbyes with polite smiles, like they'd just attended a reasonably good play. Marcelo approached her. You okay? Elena nodded. No, but I will be. He put an arm around her shoulders. You're not alone. She looked at him. For the first time in hours, she felt that someone was truly present. That night, Lily fell asleep curled up next to Marcelo. Elena stayed awake, sitting at Tomas's desk, going through his notes, his books, his papers with little phrases written in the margins. In one of the notebooks, she found one she didn't remember ever reading. If I die early, make sure Elena and Lily live as if I were still by their side. Elena closed the notebook and held it tightly against her chest. In the darkness, she understood that the real funeral hadn't been that morning. The true burial happens in silence, in the corners of the soul, when you bury not just the person you loved, but also the life you had planned with them. And that kind of mourning has no date, no flowers, no speeches. Only solitude. And endurance. Elena didn't yet know that the real battle wasn't against death, but against the living. Weeks later, Tomas's words, those written in firm handwriting in the notebook's margin, replayed in her head like a mantra. Make sure Elena and Lily live as if I were still by their side. He knew. Somehow he sensed it. And Elena, though shattered, had decided to do exactly that. Marcelo was still around. His presence was a quiet truce with the pain. He picked up Lily from school, cooked without saying much, and spent the evenings on the couch, reading or petting the little dog Lily had rescued 2 months before. The silence between them was a new language, one made of respect. But it wouldn't last. The truce was broken on a Friday morning. The doorbell rang insistently, a sound that, in that newly morning home, felt like a stab. Elena looked through the peephole. Claudio and Teresa were standing on the porch, impeccable, as if they had come for a family lunch, not to interrupt a time of grieving. She opened the door without hiding her surprise. I didn't know you were coming. We thought it was time to talk, Teresa said, walking in uninvited. Claudio followed her, adjusting his expensive watch while surveying the living room. And Lily? At school, Elena replied coldly. Perfect. That way we can speak openly. Elena closed the door and crossed her arms. Say what you came to say. Teresa sat down on the sofa as if the place belonged to her. Claudio let his gaze wander over the pictures on the wall, the photos with Tomas, the things that weren't his. Elena, Teresa began softly, we don't want to make you uncomfortable. We know you're going through a difficult time, but we also think it's only fair to talk about what comes next. What comes next? Your situation, Claudio interjected. You're in a favorable position, given the circumstances. Favorable. Claudio smiled, as if he hadn't just delivered an insult. Don't take it the wrong way. We mean Tomas was forward-thinking. He left everything in order. You and Lily are taken care of, that's undeniable. And Teresa said, picking up an empty cup that hadn't been offered to her, we're not as well off. Your father and I have had some financial hits. The market crashed. Medications are through the roof. You understand. Elena stared at them without blinking. Are you seriously here to ask me for money? It's not asking. It's a family conversation. We thought maybe a fair distribution. Fair. Claudio pulled a folder from his briefcase. Elena recognized it. It was a copy of the insurance document she had handled with Tomas's lawyer. That couldn't be a coincidence. Someone had talked. We're proposing, Claudio said, that 50% of the insurance be transferred to us. That would allow us to secure our retirement. Also, we think an additional 15% for Sofia is the least that could be done. She's going through a hard time. You know her career as an artist. Elena raised a hand. Her voice came out low and dangerous. Have you lost your minds? Elena, don't respond like that, said Teresa. We raised you, gave you everything. Your father paid for your college. We helped with the mortgage on your first house. Doesn't that deserve some reciprocity? Reciprocity. The word caught in her throat. I gave you what you always wanted. Silence. I stayed quiet when you ignored my birthday for Sofia's. I stayed quiet when she had her third abortion and you canceled the family trip I had paid for. I stayed quiet when I married Tomas and you sat in the back row. But now that the man who loved me is dead, you come asking me to fund your retirement. Claudio tried to speak, but Elena raised her voice. I didn't win the lottery. My husband died. And you're here with your hands out. Don't yell, please. The neighbors, let them hear. Let them know my family came to negotiate the price of my grief. Don't exaggerate, Claudio said, frowning. This is just common sense. There's money. We're family. You stopped being my family the day you didn't show up when I needed you most. When Lily asked why her grandparents weren't coming, do you know what I had to tell her? That you were busy. That Sofia's birthday was more important than her father's death. Teresa's eyes filled with tears. But they weren't tears of guilt. They were of discomfort. Of rage for having lost control. You're treating us like strangers. They're worse than strangers. They're opportunists with my blood in their veins. The staircase door creaked. Lily was on the landing, her backpack still slung over one shoulder. She had come back early because of a canceled activity and no one had heard her come in. Mom? Her voice trembled. Elena turned around. Her expression changed instantly. She ran to her. Everything's okay, sweetheart. Let's go to your room. Were you talking about money? Lily asked, her eyes locked on her grandparents. Teresa tried to come closer, but Lily stepped back. I don't want you touching Dad's money. Elena felt herself split in two. She took her daughter's hand and they went upstairs together. From above, they heard the door slam. Claudio and Teresa had left. In Lily's room, Elena explained that sometimes adults didn't know how to deal with pain. That sometimes, instead of embracing, they demanded. That Tomas's money was safe. That no one could take away what her father had left for her. But something in Lily broke that afternoon. A piece of her remaining innocence slipped away from her body like a kite with a cut string. That very night, Elena called Esteban, the lawyer and Tomas's best friend. I need to go over everything. The policy, the will, the accounts, everything. Esteban wasn't surprised. They came to see you? Yes. They wanted 50%. And 15% for Sofia. How generous, Esteban said sarcastically. Don't worry. They can't touch anything. Tomas was meticulous. Everything is in your name. The family exclusion clause is signed. Exclusion clause? Yes. Tomas requested it explicitly. He wanted to protect you. Elena closed her eyes. She felt cared for, even now that Tomas could no longer hold her. Thank you, Esteban. There's one more thing you should know, he added gravely. Your Uncle James works in insurance. Someone had to leak the amount. That folder they saw didn't land in their hands by accident. Elena gripped the phone. So this was planned. Most ambushes start with a smile. That night, Elena didn't sleep. She stayed in the kitchen, staring at photos of Tomas. She decided she would no longer cry for her parents. She decided the war had begun. And this time, she wasn't going to lose. Because she had already lost everything. And when someone has nothing, they also have no fear. The war had begun. Elena knew it the same night she decided never to cry again for Claudio and Teresa. She felt it in how the silence of her house became an accomplice. She no longer feared what was coming. Because the only things that truly mattered, Tomas's memory and Lily's emotional well-being, were under her protection, and she had no intention of yielding a single inch. Over the next few days, she ignored every message, every call from her parents. The mailbox filled with soulless letters. Social media began to show subtle posts from Sofia, quotes about ingratitude, family betrayal, moral duty. Claudio wrote a reflection on the decay of values and paired it with an old photo of Elena at 12 years old. As if the image were proof of ownership. Elena blocked everything. Not out of cowardice, out of emotional hygiene, but she knew they wouldn't stop. And she was right. A few days later, she received a formal letter, signed by Claudio, written on letterhead bearing the family crest he used for his real estate business. The text was written as if it were a contract. Elena, due to the importance of this situation for the family as a whole, we request that you attend a meeting at our home next Sunday at 2 p.m. Close relatives will be present to ensure that everything is fair, respectful, and transparent. He didn't sign it as a father. He signed it as a patriarch. Elena felt a harsh heat rise up her neck. This wasn't about resolving anything. It was an ambush. A stage play meant to expose her, bend her, manipulate her in front of an audience. They wanted to reduce her to the role of the disobedient daughter. And they used the word family like it was a loaded weapon. She thought about not going. But then, Lily, who overheard more than she admitted, approached with an envelope in her hand. Can I go with you? Elena looked at her with eyes full of questions. Why, sweetheart? I have something I want to give them. To them? I don't want you to go through this. You don't have to be there. Yes, I do. He was my dad too. And they left me alone. Elena leaned in and stroked her hair. What's in that envelope? Lily clutched it to her chest. Something Dad taught me. How to tell the truth without shouting. Elena knew she couldn't say no. Sunday arrived with an overcast sky like a warning. Elena and Lily dressed soberly, no solemnity, no show. The girl held her envelope with both hands. She didn't want to let it go, not even to put on her coat. When they arrived, they noticed the cars parked in front of the Marquez house. They recognized Uncle James's gray sedan, the white pickup belonging to Teresa's cousins, and the red compact car of Barbara, Uncle Terry's wife. Half the clan had been summoned. A perfectly selected audience. The door opened before Elena could ring the bell. Teresa, dressed in pastel blue, greeted them with an artificial smile. So glad you came. Come in. There's coffee and pastries. The living room was perfectly arranged, as if material order could cover emotional chaos. In the center, Claudio sat in his favorite armchair. Beside him, Sofia, legs crossed, a notebook on her lap. Everyone else sat in their designated places, like a Thanksgiving dinner, but without gratitude or warmth. Elena entered without greeting. Lily was at her side, firm, silent. Let's begin, Claudio said with authority. Thank you for coming. This isn't an intervention. It's a family conversation. We want to resolve tensions that have arisen since Tomas's death. Resolve or justify? Elena asked without blinking. Resolve, of course. We're all witnesses here. We want clarity. No misunderstandings. Like the misunderstanding of asking for half of my dead husband's money? An uncomfortable murmur spread through the room. Some looked down. Others crossed their arms. We want to explain, Teresa said, crossing her legs with forced elegance, that our situation is very difficult. We're older. Medical expenses. Unexpected things. You have an opportunity now to do something for the people who gave you everything. Sophia jumped in. Besides, it was never fair. You always had more support from Tomas. Everything was always for you. It's time to balance things out. Balance? Elena let out a bitter laugh. You? Who were supported until you were 34? Who changed careers 3 times and still ask mom to pay your credit cards? Sophia turned red. It's not fair that you have everything while the rest of us have to make do. The only thing I have is the void where my husband should be. And if you think that void is worth a check, you're sicker than I thought. You don't understand, Elena, Claudio insisted. Your mother and I invested in you for years. Isn't it logical that now, with your stability, you give something back? I'm not a retirement fund. You owe us. Claudio's shout echoed off the walls. It was Lily who broke the silence that followed. So love has a price? Everyone turned toward the girl. She stood tall, firm. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through flesh. Do you have a list of how much love you gave and how much you want back? Elena looked at her, eyes brimming. Lily pulled out the envelope and walked to the center. She held it out to her grandfather. I made this because you came when Dad died, not to hug us, not to make us soup, not to ask if I could sleep at night. You came to ask about money. Claudio took the paper, unfolded it. Silence fell. It was a single sheet, written in a child's handwriting, with drawings along the edges. At the top, it read, Invoice for love not given. She listed. They didn't come when I cried for Dad equals $0. They didn't hug Mom when she wasn't eating equals $0. They didn't help me with my homework equals $0. They didn't ask me how I felt equals $0. Being grandparents equals priceless, but unpaid. Total, $0. This is what they deserve, Lily said, her voice trembling. Nothing. No one dared to speak. Teresa pressed her lips tightly. Claudio held the paper as if it were burning. Sophia looked down. Some of those present shifted uncomfortably. Aunt Barbara wiped away a tear. We're leaving, Elena said, taking her daughter's hand. Claudio stood up. You can't just leave like that. This isn't over. Of course it's over. Because what you call family isn't. They crossed the room without looking back. At the door, Barbara stood up and caught up to them. I'm sorry, Elena. I didn't know this was meant to pressure you. I thought it was a meeting to honor Tomas. It hurts that I was here. Elena nodded. She said nothing. She couldn't. Once in the car, Lily looked out the window. Do you think Dad would be proud? Elena hugged her. Dad would be crying with love for you. That night, messages came. Many. Some family members outraged, others ashamed. Some accusing them of destroying the family, of selfishness, of pride, of lack of compassion. Elena didn't respond to any of them. She put Lily's paper in the safe where the important documents were kept. Because that bill, made with crayons and brutal honesty, was the only document that told the truth without filters. And because that brave act by her daughter had sealed everyone's fate, there would be no more meetings, no more explanations, only rebuilding. From scratch, from real love, from the blood that asks for nothing in return, from the silence that protects, not the one that manipulates. And from that day on, whenever Elena doubted her strength, she remembered the moment her daughter, 8 years old, and with a paper envelope, spoke the truth no one else dared to say. Her daughter's words still floated in Elena's memory like echoes etched in glass. Dad would be crying with love for you. That phrase had embedded itself in her consciousness with painful tenderness. Every time she remembered Lily standing in front of the whole family, so small, so firm, with that handmade envelope, something inside her broke and mended at the same time. Elena had believed that after that confrontation, the wound would close. That distancing herself from Claudio, Teresa, and Sofia would be enough. But she didn't count on what came next, the remnants of the past floating like ashes in the air, the ghosts of a childhood shaped by inequality and guilt. Guilt always lurking like a patient animal. Her relationship with her family hadn't broken suddenly. It had worn away over the years, silently, like a leak in the foundation. Now, with the distance established, Elena began to see clearly what she had once justified. She remembered Christmases with only one expensive gift, and that gift was always for Sofia. She received a new bike. Elena, a textbook. Sofia celebrated birthdays with movie themes, clowns, and professional photos. Elena got homemade cakes and recycled candles. Her mother said it was because Elena was mature, because she knew how to understand. But no one had asked her if she wanted to understand. No one asked if it hurt. She remembered her high school graduation. She had been the top of her class. They gave her a medal in front of everyone, and when she came home with shining eyes, her mother only asked if she could watch Sofia that night because she had theater rehearsal. Sofia wasn't evil. She was clumsy, complacent, spoiled. Claudio and Teresa had shaped a glass queen and expected Elena to be the throne that held her up. It wasn't that Elena hadn't loved them. Of course she had. Like one loves cruel gods with fearful faith. But blind love died with Tomas. Since his loss, the world had sharper edges. Now she saw with surgical precision the lines of abandonment, the uneven seams in the structure of her story. While she faced this internal reckoning, things at home weren't better. Lily didn't talk about the bill she handed over. But since that day, her mood had changed. She slept restlessly, muttered things in her sleep, and woke up agitated. Sometimes she ran to Elena's room at 2 or 3 in the morning and slipped under the covers without a word. Some nights she cried without tears, only with a trembling body. "What did you dream, love?" Elena asked, stroking her hair. Dad was leaving again, and he wouldn't let me say goodbye. At school, her grades dropped. The art teacher found her once alone in the bathroom, sitting on the floor, hugging her backpack. Elena was called in. The school psychologist explained that Lily was going through a complicated grieving process, which could take longer than expected, especially given the family situation the girl had faced. "Has there been tension with other family members?" the psychologist asked. "If by tension you mean greed, manipulation, and betrayal, then yes," Elena answered without softening her tone. That night, when they got home, Elena found Marcelo sitting in the kitchen, going over papers. He had stayed longer than planned, postponing his return to Japan indefinitely. He had taken a leave of absence from his university and turned the living room into his makeshift office during the day. He cooked when Elena couldn't anymore, took Lily to the park when her legs were trembling. "Today was a long day," Elena said as she set her keys on the table. "I can see it on your face. What happened?" She told him everything. About school, about the dreams, about the psychologist. "I feel like I'm failing," she confessed. "Like I'm not helping her the way I should." Marcelo got up, poured her a cup of tea, put it in her hands, and said, "You're doing more than anyone else would. You're not perfect, but you're present. That's more than your parents ever offered." Elena closed her eyes. Let the steam from the tea hit her face like a caress. When she opened them again, she looked at Marcelo with a mix of gratitude and exhaustion. "Tomas would miss you so much." Marcelo smiled wistfully. "I miss him every day. And there's something I haven't told you." Elena looked at him attentively. Marcelo went to the study and came back with a small wooden box. He handed it to her. "This was among Tomas's things. He asked me to give it to you if he wasn't here anymore." Elena opened it. Inside was a folded letter. The envelope had her name, written in Tomas's steady handwriting. "My love," the letter began, "if you're reading this, it means I couldn't win against my stubborn heart. I didn't want to worry you, but I needed to make some things clear." Elena swallowed hard. Marcelo waited silently. "I know your father has come with investment proposals. He did it more than once. Always with sweet words, always disguised as family concern. I refused. But his look made it clear he expected that someday you wouldn't be able to say no." Elena felt a chill. "Don't trust him, Elena. I know it hurts, but you have to protect Lily. And protect yourself. Money can bring out the worst in people. I've seen it with my own eyes." The letter ended with words of love, gratitude, and a snippet of a song they used to listen to on Sunday mornings. But the core, the essence, was a warning. Tomas had seen it coming. He had felt it before anyone else. "He always knew who they were," Elena murmured. "And he protected you," Marcelo added. "Now it's my turn to do that." The following weeks were tough. Elena decided to change her phone number. She asked Lily's school to not allow visits without authorization. Esteban drafted a legal document forbidding any family claims on the inheritance. It was a way to build walls without raising a scandal. No one else tried to contact them. Not directly, but social media remained a covert battleground. Sofia posted a childhood photo with Elena, captioned, "Some sisters are born to divide, others to heal. What a shame when only one is left." Teresa shared quotes about children's ingratitude, accompanied by flowers and old photographs. Claudio, meanwhile, had fallen into digital silence, which was even more unsettling. In a conversation with Barbara, the aunt who had shown some shame after the family meeting, Elena learned that Claudio and Teresa were talking about taking legal action, although no one knew exactly what. "I don't think they dare," Barbara told her. "But if they do, don't be surprised." Claudio has never accepted no for an answer. "Let them try," Elena replied. "I owe them nothing anymore." Amid that emotional chaos, Lily started to improve. Slowly, with therapy, with drawings, with time. Her therapist asked her to write letters to her father, even if she didn't send them. Elena helped her fold them and put them in a blue box that now lived in the closet. Each letter was a little healing. One night, while they were having dinner, Lily asked something that took Elena by surprise. "Do you think Grandma and Grandpa ever loved me?" Elena put down her utensils and looked at her. "I believe they loved you, yes. But they didn't know how to show it. And when you don't know how to love properly, a lot of damage is done." Lily thought silently. "And what if they want to come back? Then they'll have to prove with actions what they never did with words. But it's up to you if you want to see them. I'm not going to force you." Lily nodded. "Dad used to say family isn't who tells you they love you. It's who takes care of you when no one else does." Marcelo smiled. That's exactly what he believed. That night, Elena locked herself in her room. She took out Tomas's letter and read it for the 5th time. She cried without hiding it. Not out of sadness, but a confusing mix of love, pain, and anger. Because Tomas had loved her so much that he had protected her even from her own father. And because she was finally keeping that promise. Outside, the wind shook the branches of the old oak tree in front of the house. Inside, Elena stood up, took a deep breath, and thought about what was to come. Because it wasn't over yet. Because the past doesn't disappear just by locking it away. Sometimes it comes back. Sometimes it demands revenge. And she, though tired, was no longer afraid. Elena woke up with a heavy feeling in her chest, as if her body still remembered the echo of the previous night. She had dreamed of Tomas. She saw him sitting at the breakfast table, reading the newspaper, laughing at something silly Lily said. In the dream, the house wasn't silent but filled with the constant murmur of life, of coffee brewing and spoons clinking. But upon waking, only the sound of the wind and stillness remained. For weeks, Elena had been holding her world together with her hands, a fragile structure made of willpower and fear. But after Tomas's letter, something had ignited inside her. A new drive, a determination that didn't waver. She wasn't going to back down anymore. She wouldn't let anyone turn Tomas's memory into a bargaining chip. And even less, let them lay a finger on her daughter. That day, mid-morning, Marcelo tapped her on the shoulder while she was replying to emails on the computer. "Esteban just called me. Your parents have sent a legal notice. They want to start a process to review the inheritance." Elena turned slowly. She wasn't surprised. She had been expecting it. It was only a matter of time. And what exactly are they requesting? Access to the will. They claim that as direct descendants, they have the right to review the use of the funds. "They have no right to anything," Elena murmured. "They know it. They just want to intimidate me." Marcelo handed her a copy of the letter drafted by Esteban. In it, with a tone as polite as it was cutting, it was explained that Tomas had clearly stipulated the total exclusion of third parties, and that any attempt to dispute would be considered abuse and coercion towards the widow and the minor beneficiary. Esteban also gave them 72 hours to retract before filing a countersuit for emotional damages. "This is the strongest move we can make without going to civil court," Marcelo explained. "And if they proceed, they'll be left without support. They can't afford a trial," Elena said, crossing her arms. This is a desperate move. But the next blow wasn't legal. It was emotional. Days later, Lily's school principal called Elena to her office. There was concern in her voice. This morning, an elderly couple showed up at the entrance. They say they are Lily's grandparents. They asked for her and wanted to take her to the gate to say hello. Elena felt her heart skip a beat. Did they see her? No. The security staff acted as instructed. We didn't allow contact. But it's important you know. That night, Elena didn't sleep. It wasn't fear. It was fury. A dull rage that coursed through her body like static electricity. They had crossed the last line. It was no longer just threats or letters disguised as concern. It was harassment. A direct attempt to get close to Lily, to manipulate her, to use her love as bait. The next day, Esteban filed a formal complaint for harassment and attempted interference in the well-being of a minor. He also processed a restraining order preventing Claudio and Teresa from coming within 300 meters of Lily or any property connected to her. Elena signed the papers without hesitation. After the legal scandal, the phone started ringing again. But this time, they were different voices. Barbara called first. Her tone was different, filled with shame. "I just want you to know that not all of us agreed with what Claudio and Teresa did. Many of us didn't even know how far they were going. And I'm not going to support something that harms a little girl." "Thank you, Barbara," Elena said. "But this is no longer about taking sides. It's about principles. Silence makes you complicit." "I know. That's why I wanted to tell you that you won't be alone." Then it was Roberto, a cousin of Tomas, who had always kept a low profile. He offered support for whatever they needed. He apologized for not acting sooner. Even Lily's psychologist, who had been following her case closely, offered to testify if the matter went to court. But the most unexpected came as a private message on Elena's phone. It was from Sofia. "I know I have no right to write to you, but I want to apologize. Not for what happened at the meeting. For everything. For the years. For competing with you. For not seeing the damage I was causing." I don't expect a reply. I just needed to say it. Elena didn't respond. Not out of hatred, but because, for the first time, she didn't need Sofia to acknowledge her. She didn't need her to understand. Because the wound had started to heal on its own, without asking permission. Lily was also beginning to heal. With the help of her therapist and Marcelo, she started a project, a memory album for Tomas. It wasn't an ordinary photo book. It was a space where Lily wrote memories, drew moments, glued old movie tickets, magazine clippings, dried leaves. Each page was an unfinished conversation with her father. Elena helped her some nights. She read what Lily wrote, corrected some words, and cried silently while her daughter slept. Dad used to say every day can be his birthday if you do something that would have made him happy, Lily said one night. That phrase sparked something in Elena. She decided they wouldn't let the date pass in silence. That year, Tomas's birthday wouldn't be a lament, but an act of love. Marcelo helped organize everything. They invited Tomas's close friends, former colleagues, Ellen, Roberto, even Barbara. They prepared the food Tomas loved: oven-baked ribs, potato salad, craft beer, and a carrot cake with cream cheese frosting. Lily prepared a presentation of drawings, accompanied by a list of Dad's favorite things. When the day arrived, the house filled with laughter. It was a small but sincere celebration. The guests shared anecdotes. Marcelo read a fragment of a letter Tomas had sent him before moving to Japan. Elena read a poem she had written during the toughest nights. Lily read aloud a page from her album. Dad used to tell me I was like a shooting star, that I shone fast but left a long glow. I want to keep shining for him. No one could hold back tears. At the end of the day, when everyone left, Lily and Elena sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket. Marcelo washed the dishes with music playing softly in the background. Do you think Dad would be happy with us? Lily asked, leaning on her mother's shoulder. Yes, love. Very proud of the family we're becoming. And at that moment, for the first time in a long time, Elena felt peace. It wasn't complete. It wasn't permanent. But it was real. Because it wasn't about going back to what they were before, but about building something new. Something Tomas would recognize with pride. Something no letter, no trial, and no name shared by blood could destroy. The air smelled different that day. It wasn't a new season or a change in the weather. It was a different kind of silence, cleaner, softer. Elena noticed it from the moment she opened her eyes. She looked at the ceiling of her room, the same ceiling that had witnessed her darkest nights, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel the day weighing on her shoulders. It was no longer a burden. It was a promise. A year had passed since the birthday they dedicated to Tomas. Since that afternoon when Lily, sitting on her lap under a blanket, asked if her father would be happy with who they were. And yes, he was. Elena felt it in the details, in the small victories, in Lily's spontaneous laughter, in how her daughter slept peacefully and drew without fear. She saw it in Marcelo's presence, who was still with them not as a guest or an uncle, but as an extension of the family Tomas had started building, and that was now growing on new foundations. That morning, between breakfast and the routine, Elena found a letter in the mailbox. It had no letterhead, no visible signature. Just her name, written in a handwriting she recognized instantly. It was from her mother. Her heart skipped a beat. Not out of fear, but uncertainty. She broke the envelope with steady hands, took a deep breath, and began to read. Elena, too many months have passed. During this time, Claudio and I have done something we never thought necessary. We looked at each other. Not to justify ourselves, but to understand the kind of people we have become. At first, it was uncomfortable, then embarrassing, and finally, transformative. We started therapy. We didn't do it for you, nor for Lily, but because loneliness forced us to face our arrogance. We know there are no words that can erase what we said, what we did. We're not writing to ask for forgiveness. Not yet. We don't deserve it. But we do want you to know that we're working on becoming better. Not for convenience. Not for money. For humanity. This letter is not a request. It's a wish. We would like the chance to see Lily. Not alone. Not without you. In a place where she feels safe. We just want to see her. To know if there's anything we can rebuild, even if it's from scratch. If you decide no, we will understand. And if you decide yes, we promise silence and respect. Teresa. Elena stared at the paper for a long time. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. She just thought. Because her whole life she had dreamed of a gesture like this, but she also knew that gestures could be disguises. And she was no longer willing to fall for disguises. However, there was something different about this letter. a tone she had never felt from her mother before. An absence of demands. A necessary emptiness. Maybe it was real. She placed the letter on the table. Marcelo watched her from the kitchen. Everything okay? It's from them. So, they want to see Lily. Nothing more. Marcelo put the knife down on the cutting board. And what are you going to do? I don't know. Hours later, Lily came home from school. Elena waited for her to finish her snack for the intensity of the day to ease. Then she sat beside her. There's something I want to ask you. It's important. And you're the one who will decide. Lily put down her colored pencil. What's up? Your grandparents, Claudio and Teresa. They want to see you. They're not asking to talk to me. They don't want to talk about money. They just want to know if you want to see them. Lily didn't answer right away. She stared at the floor. Finally, she looked up. What do you want? I want you to be free to choose. I'll make sure you're safe. But you decide. The girl thought for a moment. Then she nodded. I want to see them. Just once. To know if they really changed. Elena stroked her cheek. Okay, we'll do it your way. They chose a small, bright cafe with open windows and many tables around. Elena made sure to sit near the door, with Marcelo beside her, at a support table. It wasn't paranoia. It was protection. Lily sat in the center, wearing a green dress that Tomas had given her on her last birthday while he was alive. At 11:02, Claudio and Teresa arrived. They were dressed simply, without ostentation, no heavy makeup, no jewelry, no expensive watches, no briefcases. Just humble looks. When Claudio saw Lily, he seemed to lose his breath. Teresa put a hand to her chest. Hi, Lily, Teresa said with a trembling voice. Lily looked at them silently. Then she spoke. Hi. They sat down. Elena watched every gesture, every word. You're grown up, Claudio said. Taller than the last time. Also stronger, Lily replied. The phrase wasn't a threat. It was a truth. And they understood it. For the first few minutes, they didn't talk about the past, nor the legal battle, nor the family. They only asked about her drawings, her music lessons, her love of butterflies. Teresa pulled out a notebook where she had started learning to draw, to better understand your drawings. Claudio handed her a book about constellations he had read during therapy. They say it helps to understand the place you occupy in the universe, he explained. No one tried to touch her. There were no dramatic tears. No pleas. When the conversation began to dwindle, Claudio leaned in a little. Lily, we made very big mistakes. We didn't know how to be grandparents. Or parents. We lost things we didn't understand. And sometimes, people need to lose everything to see what was really worth it. Teresa took the word. We don't want you to forgive us now. Maybe never. We just wanted to look you in the eyes and thank you for still being alive. For still shining. Lily watched them. Then she said, I'm not ready to hug you, but I'm willing to see if you really change. And with that, the meeting ended. As they left, Marcelo placed a hand on Elena's shoulder. It was different. I felt it. Yeah, she said. But not because of them. Because of her. Because she's no longer a confused girl. She's a girl who knows her worth. That night, Elena sat down to write. Not a journal. Not a letter. Just words she had carried inside for a long time. She thought about everything she had lived through. About the death that broke her. About the trials, the betrayals, the love. She thought about Tomas. About how he had anticipated every battle as if his love had been an invisible shield. About Marcelo, who hadn't replaced anyone but had become a pillar. About Lily, that girl who was no longer the same, who spoke truth and chose courageously. And then, she wrote something she would later read aloud at the next private ceremony they would hold for Tomas. Blood doesn't guarantee loyalty, nor does a last name assure love. Family is that place where one can return without fear, where mistakes aren't justified, but are faced. Where death doesn't put an end, but a beginning. And where silence isn't imposed, but heard. Life after silence isn't noise. It's harmony. Because at the end of that story, there was no perfect reconciliation or complete redemption. But there was something more valuable: clarity. And with that, Elena was at peace. Peace didn't feel like forgetting. It was memory without pain. It was love without conditions. It was Tomas's true legacy, etched in every decision made out of love. In every no that was upheld. In every hug given. And above all, in that girl who, without stopping to mourn her father, kept growing with her own light. If you liked this story, I invite you to leave a comment sharing how it made you feel. And if you've been through a similar experience of betrayal, I'd love for you to share your valuable opinion. Remember to tell me what city you're watching this video from. I would be very honored if you leave a like, share the video with a friend or family member, and subscribe to the channel. Don't miss the next surprising story coming to your screen right now. We have guaranteed entertainment exclusively for you. See you in the next video.